Uh, Urchita, maybe you start introducing when
Yeah,
I
uh,
started live streaming.
yeah, the live streaming has started. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining, everyone. So, today's Breakthrough Science Society's Abroad chapter uh, webinar is about debunking superstitions using biological sciences. And today's speaker is one of the core member of Breakthrough Science Society Abroad chapter core member from Dr. Madhulika Rai. She is a postdoctoral fellow in the University of Colorado Anschutz School of Medicine. She is an experimental developmental biologist and active science communicator. The floor is all yours. Please say about your talk, and the talk will be of around 35 to 40 minutes. And before she starts, I would like to say a few words to all of the audience for maintaining the sanctity of today's talk. Kindly switch off your videos and keep yourself muted for all the time. And whenever you have any question, at first try to write everything on the chat box. And then when the talk gets over, then you can directly raise your hand, raise your digital hand, and then we can speak all the time. So the floor is now yours, Dr. Madhulika.
Thank you, Archita. Hello everyone. Good morning from the US, at least the place I am right now. I hope all of you are having a good day today. So today, before starting my presentation and going or diving deep into this topic, I would like to briefly say a few words about the Breakthrough Science Society. We are all part of Breakthrough Science Society, and some of the key points or activities that we are trying to organize as a part of organization is to imbibe scientific temperament and scientific outlook. Also, we want to raise public awareness, develop scientific education, and also stop the propagation of pseudoscientific thoughts and superstitions. And as you can see, as a part of all these ideas bringing together today in my presentation, you will realize that a lot of part is about the scientific education and awareness. And a lot of it will be kind of my perspective or my thoughts about what I've learned and how we can use those as tools to stop the propagation of superstitions and some pseudoscientific thoughts. So on that line, going forward, let's see, I'm trying to move my slide. Okay, so I'm going to start with very basic knowledge to keeping in mind that the audience today is from everywhere. So going basically in very basic terms, what is a gene? What is a mutation? I want to introduce that because that is important to understand the presentation later on. So basically, if you want to ask what is a gene, if you say any organisms will have cells, like humans have cells. Inside the cells, we have nucleus and chromosome. The chromosome have this tightly packed DNA, as shown here. I hope you guys can see my cursor. So, and these DNA have these nucleotide sequences. These sequences, if you have the segment of these sequences, which can be in the DNA, that can be called a gene. So basically, a gene is a segment of DNA that contains the information in the form of a nucleotide sequence. These sequences are coming from A, T, G, C, basically adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. So now I want to go forward quickly and say, now that you know what is a gene, I want to talk a little bit about what is a mutation. So a mutation in very basic words is a change in the DNA sequence of a cell or organism. What does it mean? Let's say if there is a starting sequence, let's say this is like sequence in the DNA, which is composed of the combinations of G, T, C, and A. And let's say that there is this G that gets deleted. And that can happen because of multiple reasons. We are not going to go deep into that right now. But if it gets deleted, this is a deletion. Then what can happen is G can get substituted with A, let's say. Then it's a substitution. It's also a mutation. Then you can have insertion that between A and G, you got T inserted. So this is an insertion. So this is an example just to show that there could be different or multiple ways a mutation can happen. Usually our cells have these inbuilt machineries that will correct these mutations, but through evolution and a lot of factors of environmental changes and stuff can actually make some of the mutations to persist, and that can lead to a lot of changes. So directly coming to evolution, as I was talking about, and of course, when we talk about evolution, we should always also give a lot of credit to Darwin and his theory. At the time when he was writing his book and theories, a lot of techniques and knowledge that we have today from genetics was not available. But now we do understand that some of the things that he mentioned or written are actually can be proved with the help of genetics, such as natural selection and survival of the fittest. By the way, one thing I do want to say when I say this, that I have heard sometimes that survival of the fittest is kind of have become a slang. Sometimes it's used. It actually doesn't mean that fit here does not actually mean that you have to be strong or the biggest. Fit actually here means given your surroundings or environment, how well you can adapt. That is how the fit is defined in this scenario. So just to keep a small thing in mind. So as you can see beautifully, evolution shown here, there are multiple organisms that are existing today as a part of evolution. And directly going to the topic, there are different species that are there in the world today. Now, what are species? So basically, we can define a species is a group of organisms that can reproduce with each other and produce fertile offsprings. So this is basic definition for species. And as you can see in this picture, there are so many species in this world existing. And humans, which are called Homo sapiens, are one of the species. And I would want to bring two very clear points that all of the Homo sapiens, like all the humans as species, 99.9% we have genetic similarity. And only the differences that we see on a physical level, the genetic basis only is about 0.1% difference among humans. So as you can see, that minor genetic variations can be reason for how we look different from each other, and also some of the very much diseases that we are seeing today, because that can happen from some of the mutations that I'll be talking about later. So I am not sure if I'm seeing the chat box on my screen, but if there is any question or anything, maybe Tanmay or Archita, you can tell me, and then maybe we can go from there. So I would like to bring one thing and then go from there, which is no other species. And as I said, some of these are my ideas and my thoughts. And I think that based on how, as humans, we have gone through so many civilizations and societies, no other species other than humans have started like discriminating based on traits and physically how you look and how you talk and where you're coming from and things like that. So we will talk more detail about this part. I have a question to all of you, and maybe you can put this in chat box as I talk, and let's see what everyone thinks. So I would like everybody to be engaged in this, because that will also give me the idea of how we are going. So I want to ask all of you to write which of these traits have some genetic basis. What do you think? Does the color of humans, the color of the skin, have genetic basis? Does the caste have genetic basis? What about height? What about being male or female? What about the religion of a person? What about their habits? And what about traditional values? So I'm going to give, I think, a second or two to see if you guys are writing, and then we'll go from there. I encourage you to write. 1, 3, and 4. Color, height, male, female. Mhm. Mhm. Cool. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of answers here, right? So yes, you guys are right, and I'm very happy that I'm getting very positive answers here. So yes, if you see here all the options, color, yes, that can happen from the melanin deposition, and also a lot of combinations of genes are playing role here. Then if you consider about the caste, that is something that happened in a societal system. It does not have a genetic basis to it. Height, yes, have a genetic basis to it. Male and female, there are sex chromosomes, so it has genetic basis to it. Religion is something what people can believe on and be a part of. It does not have genetic basis. Habits are something that we can develop as humans, has no genetic basis. Traditional values that we can carry from home, from mentors, from our society and surroundings, it also does not have genetic basis. So I was glad to hear some good answers here. Thank you for writing that. So with that in mind, the next thing I want to ask is, or I want to show is, there are divisions that we have actually created in our brains, and we, in the society, we see a lot of discrimination or distinctions that actually come based on following these personality traits that are more of societal and not really biological, as we saw right now. For example, the color of the human being is, for example, everywhere, not only in India, in many parts of the world, based on the colors, sometimes even in a job setting or at the work culture, the respect is not equal. And we have seen in history also, there is a lot of, based on the color of the skin, there have been some discriminations that have happened. Even in India, you can find sometimes these kind of lines which are very vague, saying that, yeah, the person is not really beautiful, or you get this mind idea in the brain that the person has a darker color or a fairer color, and based on that you start combining the traits to them, which are like, maybe they are more beautiful person, which is like, which has nothing to do with their beauty from inside, right? Or how the intelligence, or what is the cerebral capacity. There is no biological or genetic basis in the discriminations that we are making based on this. Then same, and it goes to caste. These are the society's divisions that have been existing in our society. But as I said, there is not much genetic basis to it. So discrimination or distinctions made based on the caste, which we see very often even today, even in like small chores of the home, or asking for certain things, even like touching of certain utensils at certain homes. Some people, if they're working there, are not allowed, and things like that are still existing, which is not really a good idea, because these are also distinctions that we are making. Sometimes based on the heights, you will see a lot of comments that are raised, which are also not good. Male and female, we'll talk more about it in my presentation, but this is very obvious. We see that in no way, when we talk about male and female, there is, we talk a lot about being equality and equity, but a lot of times, if we ask ourselves question from very deep inside in, are we not having any distinctions or discriminations? And often if you ask yourself that question, the answer unfortunately is no. And I want to make it clear, when I say this, this has a genetic basis to it, but making a discrimination does not have any biological relevance to it. And when I talk about male female, I'm not talking about the physical strength and all that. Of course, physically we look different. We have a different genetic basis to being male or female. But when it comes to cerebral capacity and things, there are not studies saying that there are much differences. And instead of making those distinctions or discriminations, I would suggest that we should think about supporting each other. If a male supporting female, a female supporting male, in whatever capacity they have as being a physical on their physical level. And this is not only just female and male, this is for every different person that you meet. Then others also go on the same line: religion, tradition, habits, and the region where the person is coming from. These are all the distinction or discrimination based on these traits you can are also existing in our society still, unfortunately. And I think we should all think about these things deeply and ask ourselves whenever we get these questions in our mind, and also if we see these things happening around us, to try to stop it or educate people to have these distinctions or clear boundaries in the minds. So with that, I will go more into the discrimination that we have seen between males and females. So I have another question which I want in chat box to you, right? So can parents actually choose or influence whether the child will be male or female? I give certain seconds to see what people are writing, yes or no. Nice, I'm getting a lot of no's. Cool, cool, cool. Nice. Yeah, so I heard a lot of notes, which is a great sign. So all of you are right. Let me try to close this. Okay, yeah. So yeah, can parents choose or influence whether the child will be male or female? The answer is no. And this should be very clear. Unfortunately, as we see, we all know the answers, but still in our society, many times we see that a female is actually punished is a bigger word, but actually considered responsible for if it's a boy child that is born or a girl child that is born, whereas there is no, parents cannot choose or influence, as we have seen right now. And the reason behind, I will say, in basic genetics, so we know that males have X and Y as the sex chromosomes, and the females have X and X. Okay, so this is called a Punnett square, where basically you are making combinations. So we know that 50% is coming from male here, X and Y, that is in male. And then 50% is coming from female, which has X and X. So if you want to make combinations of these, you will see X can come from female, X can come from male. So X, and this will be a female, right? A female, a girl baby child. Then here again, if you have X and X, you will have again a girl child. And then if you have X from the mother and Y from father, this is a boy, and the same here, a boy. So you can say there are 50% chance of a baby girl or a baby boy, right? And then I want to say something here, that if you actually see very closely, this Y chromosome is actually determining factor in the next generation here in babies, if it's gonna be a boy or a girl, right? Female, the mother is giving both X's to the baby. So there is nothing here that is actually deciding what is coming. For the next generation baby to be a boy, it has to have a Y that is coming from the father. So there is no genetic basis to why a society today and from previously is punishing a woman for giving a birth to a boy or a girl child. She does not even have a choice, I would say. And this is one example of kind of superstition and something that has been coming as a part of patriarchal society that we have been seeing. And it's a high time that we stop these kind of ideas and these kind of habits that we have developed through time. I also want to say that in no way here I'm saying that a male is responsible, or as I said in the very beginning, parents do not have a choice or do not have an influence in determining the sex of the baby in the next generation. So that means male or female, we do not have a choice. But also female, in no way there is no biological relevance to saying that a woman is responsible or may have any decision when a baby is born as a boy or a girl. So it's a high time we should stop these ideas, and we should actually talk about, educate people, and say that female does not have a choice, and it's really a 50% chance of having a girl or a boy child. So with that, I want to also take a little bit different dimension here and just ask some of the things. What do you think about? Again, write in the chat. If you think this is a superstition or this is actually a biology or this is scientific. So first is, and you can just say the numbers. First is fair skin equals to better health. And second is eating certain foods, sweet, sour food, milk, ghee, determines baby's gender. Then other one is socioeconomic condition can influence baby's growth and development. Fourth is there is a genetic basis for how we look, and infertility is always a woman's fault. So I'll quickly just wait for some seconds. So I think just write the numbers for what do you think is a superstition. That will make it easier. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm getting 1, 2, and 5. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you guys are correct, and I'm happy that I'm getting all these good answers. So yes, as you guys already mentioned, that fair skin equals to better health. We talked briefly about how the different people having different body color comes from melanin deposition. It can be a combination of various genes, but it's a super, having a fair skin does not relate to any other cerebral capacity of the person or health of the person. Nothing. It's just basically melanin showing up. That's all. So fair skin equals better health is not biology. Eating certain foods, sweet, sour food, milky, determines baby's gender. There is no research, there are no papers until now that are saying any of these. And this is really a big thing I have seen in India, that and not only in saying determining baby gender, but also we relate what we eat to a lot of things like this will, eating certain herbs will, let's say, cure certain diseases, which are big. I just want to say that herbs and all the spices and foods do have certain values to them. And research has been ongoing a lot of times that are trying to see that what kind of food, what are the properties of the food that is there. For example, let's say for garlic, what are the properties that or how it is actually changing things at all in terms of our biology in the body. All those research are going on, but I think claiming at this point and saying that you eat garlic and it will cure some of the diseases is saying too much. If you want it to eat healthy food and develop as a habit to stay healthy in a long term, eating greens and another kind of food sources, that is all good. I'm not going against it. But extending it to saying that eat certain kind of food that can solve a disease is extending it too much, and it becomes on the extent of leading to superstition. For example, when I talked about mutation, There are many diseases, some metabolic disorders, let's say diabetes, or if we talk about cancer, there is a lot of genetic basis to it, how it happens. When I say that, what I mean is certain times there are particular mutations that can lead to the formation of tumors and leading to metastasis and cancer. And if a person is developing that kind of diseases, unfortunately, they have to seek for medical attention and proper care and medication and treatment. Eating certain kind of food and developing certain habits might not be very helpful there. So propagating these ideas can be good to develop a good habit to eat healthy, but to cure certain disease when a person is struggling is not the best idea, I would suggest. Medical attention is the way to go for. Then socioeconomic conditions can influence baby's growth and development. This is actually true, and the research has shown that based on what kind of nutrition a baby can get in their growth and development phase from the time he or she is born, can actually affect their growth, their development of different organs of the body and the whole body development systemically. So this is true that poor nutrition does affect the growth. Then there is a genetic basis for how we look. I think we discussed a little bit about it in the beginning, that yeah, there is just like 0.1% different in our genetics when we talk about as being whole species, as Homo sapiens. So yeah, there are very less, there are some differences. That's why that makes a big change of about how we look. And there are many things in terms of genetics that we are also inheriting from our parents. And we'll talk more about it in detail. So then infertility is always a woman's fault. This is a no, this is not biology. Infertility is not a woman's fault or a man's fault. Infertility, again, can happen based on, it's a kind of whole disease that can happen based on some of the genetic mutation or environmental factors or some epigenetic factors that we have seen and the research has been showing now. Some of the habits, for example, smoking can actually affect the fertility of a human being. So some of the habits that we develop, unfortunately, can affect it, but it's not anybody's fault. There is no genetic basis. So going further, yeah. So going further that we have discussed some of these topics, I want to bring in forward that how some of the practices are actually making harmful impacts on the society in today's world. So harmful results of some of these discriminatory practices, for example, I would say, because I found some research and papers when I was looking for this topic, is actually what we think or become a habit for all of us, and let's say our comfort zone a lot of times is the intra-caste marriages. So in India, we see that there are a lot of intra-caste marriages that happens. And as we see, as I'll show you some of the papers, it is coming up that intra-caste marriages might result into future generations that are more prone to diseases such as diabetes due to genetic isolation. What is genetic isolation? We will talk about it briefly. And then there are, as I mentioned, some published studies and articles, and more research is happening nowadays in India on this matter. So what is genetic isolation? Very briefly, this is a diagram I tried to make so that there is some rough idea that I am able to convey to all of you. Let's say that father and mother are in the same caste, and their families have been marrying in the same caste from generations. This is a practice the family is doing. And male, the father, let's say, have a kind of mutation on X, and the mother does not. So in the next generation, if you remember the Punnett square thing, in the next generation, there are 4 possibilities here, 2 daughters and 2 sons. And since father's X has this mutation, both the daughters here and here have possible, they will receive this X from the father, which will have mutation. Whereas the boys will receive Y from the father and X from the mother, so they do not carry this mutation. So both the sons will be fine in this generation. And I want to, as I explain this, I want to say that when only one of the chromosomes, one of the X here has this mutation, this is recessive. And when both of the X starts carrying M mutation, then actually it becomes dominant and a lot of diseases start showing up. So in very layman's term, I would say that when there is only here on one of the X mutation, then it is in recessive form. It is not going to show up as a disease in that generation and you will be normal. And because of course, in a normal day-to-day life, nobody is doing a genetic screening of themselves, so you won't even know that you are carrying that mutation. But in your next generation, if, as you will see later on, if both of the X start carrying M, then that will start showing them as a dominant. It will become a disease for that person. So let's say here we were in this generation, there are two daughters that have this. Let's say one of the daughters now marry in the same caste as the family was doing the same thing, she does the same thing. And because it's in the same caste, there is a high probability that she's gonna marry a person, a male who has again this mutation on X. So in that case, again, you can see here that in the next generation, you can have both these two of the X, one from the mother and one from the father, are gonna have this mutation. So this daughter is having both the X that carry the mutation. So this daughter is gonna have the disease. It will come as a dominant. Whereas you will see that this male will again carry one copy, daughter has another copy. And this one is a healthy individual. So now you see in this generation, 3 out of the 4 possible combinations are now carrying the M, right? Now let's go to the next generation then. Let's say this daughter now, which has both of the X carrying M and M mutation, marries in the same caste and marries a male that has the X with the mutation. What will happen in next generation? Everyone is now carrying this M. So this is kind of genetic isolation where the population, because of marrying in the same caste again and again and again, we have generated a genetic population where people are carrying similar kind of mutations and that are getting more and more dominant because now in generations they're carrying, both the daughters are having here a disease in a dominant form. So there are a lot of papers that I'm going to mention. I won't go into the details of these papers to respect time, but I will just briefly say, and on your time, I would suggest you to look up these papers that are coming up from some years, talking about what are the impacts of caste-related practices. Like, for example, in 2007, this was a paper saying that Y chromosomal insights into the genetic impact of the caste system in India. Basically, they were saying that these findings confirm the genetic isolation. So what I explained to you in the previous slide, I didn't make it up by myself. Yes, the diagram and picture I was trying to explain, but I haven't made this term up. This is actually research is showing up that genetic isolation and drift in the populations in India is happening. Then another one has come up, which this is actually from news, which talks about impacts of giving caste a priority for marriage, which is saying one of the lines, if I just read here, is the bad news is across India, only 5 to 6% of marriages are intercaste. And the Human Development Survey, which covers about 42,000 households across India, found that this number has not changed much between 2004 and 5 and 11 and 12. So again, when I say that these marriages are happening, I'm not making up. The papers are actually showing how many percentage are still going on. Then impacts of, again, within caste marriages, Research Digest was mentioning that marriages within castes may have harmed the health of many of the communities in India. It is causing genetic isolation. This was a big news that came up a few years ago, I think. It was from CCMB Hyderabad, where these labs professors are doing really good research, trying to say how the same caste marriages or these communities may cause genetic disorders in the offsprings. And how it can cause genetic disorder is one way, is what I was explaining before, is causing these drifts and genetic isolations and making the diseases come up in a dominant form. Next, again, there was another paper talking a lot is actually going on diabetes right now. And there was a paper saying the strategic research framework for defeating diabetes in India at 21st century agenda. They were saying that India has experienced high geographic genetic isolation for the last 1900 years, with intercaste marriages continuing to occur infrequently. So then I would also say that impacts of endogamy on the same line, saying this was a research which was coming from Pakistan, saying that thalassemia, which is basically happening a disorder in the blood with the levels of the hemoglobin, it is widely spread in Pakistani population, and its prevalence varied in caste groups due to endogamy, a major impact on the prevalence of thalassemia. This was 2023. Then again, actually very recently, 2025, I actually encourage, I was just trying to read this paper yesterday. It came up in 2025 this year. So if you get a chance, read this paper. It has very interesting insights. And basically this is coming from CCMB again, saying endogamy and high prevalence of deleterious mutations in India, evidence from strong founder events. And basically, one of the things they're saying, research results demonstrated that inbreeding occurred dramatically along with new genetic variants that influence health results within particular communities. So now I would, based on these, some of the biology that I've explained and some of the research papers, I just want to say some of my thoughts to wrap up. That discrimination of any kind usually originates from societal norms, myths, and superstitions. And I think it's high time that we don't blame it to biology or genetic basis, and do not use big words or pseudoscience to justify the unjust based on the belief that is happening, based on the color of the person, the religion of the person, the region they're coming from, the sex of the person, or anything. So we should all, after this presentation, I think many of the things probably many of you already knew, but what I will reiterate is we have to sometimes rethink these things, although these things might look very basic, but rethinking, analyzing within ourselves and trying to understand that why these things are they still in the society? How is it badly affecting the society? And after and only after you have certain level of understanding, then only going and talking outside about it and bringing up awareness and also developing the scientific education, I would say. I would also say one thing, if you have heard something, and again, as I said, I named this slide as my thoughts. So what I'm saying now is what I think about these things. So you cannot put blame or taglines on anyone. But I think that a lot of times, because we live in the society, we get impacted on the things. For example, in a society, there are things like, okay, a fair skin it looks more beautiful and the darker skin doesn't look that beautiful. Let's say this is going on. You hear this a lot in your surrounding, in the family, in the friends and whatever. And you are growing up listening to that. At a certain level, even if you keep fighting, this thought remains in your brain at a certain level. What can we do? Can we just get rid of that thought? No, we cannot, because we are going to hear it tomorrow again, because we live in that society, right? What can we do? I think what we can do is we can consciously stop ourselves thinking or making justifications in public and to ourselves when these thoughts come to our mind. For example, this thought come to our mind that a fair person looks beautiful. I should, even if the thought comes, the second moment I should be like, what am I thinking? This has no basis to it. So why am I thinking that way? So I shouldn't think certain things, and then try to not behave in ways that you don't want to see developments in the society coming up. So I would also try to emphasize certain things, what I think is our role. Couple of points that I wrote as male or female, whatever the caste, color, creed, religion, treat equally. Try to fight those thoughts that come to your brain because you live in the society where these thoughts are going on. I would say do not emphasize on caste when it comes to marriages. It should be more natural, cordial instead of, and the research is actually showing the harmful effects of what the practices that are going on in the society. So we should question those. Do not support any kind of suppression and discrimination. Raise your voice to whatever extent you can when you see an unjust. Discuss, read, ask questions, then only engage in a healthy discussion. This I say even at my work to my students many times, that it's better many times to first absorb the things, to discuss among friends where you feel comfortable, read about a certain topic. If you have questions, ask a lot of questions around yourself, people. Only and only when you feel confident, you have a logical explanation of things, and you get certain basis for what you are going to say, then only go in, get involved in these healthy discussions out of your comfort zone, and when it comes to propagating certain ideas. So until unless we are not sure, it's good to listen and observe and get the knowledge rather than propagating something which is pseudoscience and not really scientific. Then last but not the least, give importance to education. This is very general thing to say, but unfortunately, this still doesn't happen. Also, by the way, it does not just mean that just getting a degree. I'm not saying that get the highest degree possible. That is not what it means. Give importance to education means that around yourself in the family and to ourselves, which is educate means we should, again, ask the questions when there is an unjust, when there is no scientific basis of certain things that are being said, then trying to understand that part and then explaining why this is not correct and why the other thing is correct is kind of what I mean by getting educated and not getting the highest degree. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up here. I would say when in doubt, again, discuss among friends, family, coworkers, mentors, this platform, of course. Many discussions are welcome here until you find a logical and sensible explanations to do what we are talking about. Using big words to just explain a point is not usually a best idea. And I would say that the first step to stop spreading myths or superstitions is to first questioning it to yourself. So I think we all have to do that. First have to question that thing within ourselves, and then we have to start spreading the awareness in the society. With that, I will say thank you, and I'll take any questions. The more the questions, the better the discussion. Why? Also because I'm also learning with all of you here. So if I might not know many things that you will raise today, it will actually encourage me to go and check it out and learn more. So if you have any more questions or stuff, let me know.
Thank you, Dr. Madhulika, for an insightful talk. Before going to the questions, let me introduce about myself a little bit, because in the beginning I forgot to introduce myself. So I am Archita, a newly PhD student from Heinrich Heine University, Düsseldorf, Germany. And I am a I work in the field of biophysics, where I use fluorescence spectroscopy techniques to understand the phase separation of biomolecular condensates. And recently I have joined this breakthrough science society. And now it's time for the question. At first I see one question from the chat box by Moinak Mondol. Is gullibility a genetic trait?
I think it's a great question. I would say, Mainak, that maybe I need to read, but as far as I know, I would say no. So gullibility is like you can get easily persuaded to believe something. Um, and I would say there is not really genetic basis to it. This is basically, again, this is just my idea. I'm thinking loud here is gullibility probably can come from the surrounding or the habits that we developed or how we were raised. I would say a lot of it, or how we adapt in our work culture sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, the platform is open for you to talk also, Mainak, if I didn't say enough.
Honestly, I do not have much knowledge on that. But it's a question that bugs me from time to time because, like a certain part of the population would tend to just fall for all the misbeliefs, and it's a natural question that came to my mind.
No, it's a good question. But again, I don't think there is a genetic basis to it. At least we haven't seen it. I feel this certain populations believing in certain one kind of thing or the other, or falling for certain thing easily than the other sort of population is also, I think, is an impact of their surroundings, what kind of environment they are in currently, and how they were raised and stuff like that. We tend, for example, I would just give my own example here. Growing up, a lot of times I was not a child that will ask a lot of questions. And yes, in my school, I was taught to ask questions, and to a certain extent, but it was also a lot about like getting good marks and focusing on like understanding the scientific aspect when I was a science student. Um, but yeah, when it came to a lot of things, I'll fall for a lot of things easily, and I wouldn't question. And I think this habit of questioning I had to really develop growing up. And I would say for me as a person while doing a PhD, it changed a lot of things for me. It taught me a way of life. And as a way of life, developing some of the habits, I think I developed some of the things, which is not falling for everything, but trying to question, understand, and then going from there. So I would say this is also a practice that our education system probably making kids who are not pro asking questions, but just like taking for what is given. More than making curious minds, the system is making minds that can get higher degrees and go for jobs, and it's kind of a trend.
If you allow, Archita, just to add to what Madhu said, obviously this gullible nature is cannot be genetic because every child at their age of 2, 3, and 4, if you ask, they ask a lot of questions in general. It is the society that essentially introduce certain level of like understanding that questioning something about something is not acceptable or not encouraged. So it's obviously not genetic, rather it's societal.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's the habits that gets developed because of the way we were given answers to the questions that we were asking, or we were stopped to ask questions. I think I see something in the chat.
Yeah, there are two questions from Shubhajit. The first question from Shubhajit is how a superstition is born in a civilization. Like, if there is any relevant history or experience in human civilization when coupled with wrong interpretation by a few people later evolves in a superstition among a large number of people who do not wish to question and establish thought.
Yeah, I think you answered your question yourself. So yeah, I mean, I would say how a superstition is born in a civilization. A lot of it comes from practices, I think, that we are doing. And so in a civilization, there are certain, also I would say, when I talked about male and female, let's say a lot of superstitions, if we think coming from a mindset of patriarchal society, you will see many of these thoughts will have no genetic basis or biological basis to it. But these superstitions are existence because because we want to treat certain class sometimes a certain way, and it is going on from ever. And some of the, if you will see in ancient times, women started becoming, in the times of wars, kind of a property for these kings and kingdoms, let's say. And from there, a lot of ideas came, which is suppression. We're not allowed to do a lot of things outside and staying inside and doing some of the things. And a lot of misconceptions developed in that kind of society or in that kind of structure. So I would say that these superstitions can be born multiple ways. One is if there is a class that we want to suppress, given in a just based on whatever caste, religion, or the sex of the person. This idea of suppressing or having a certain class of people as the property, this kind of mindset will bring certain habits, and that will become superstition later on. For example, in today's time, we have access to a lot of like internet and this and that. So this generation have access to a lot of knowledge that can come, which is good and bad. Not everything is correct on social media and also on internet that is there. So we have to be conscious about what we are reading. But I would say a lot of these practices that we do in today's time, I would not say we don't have access to knowledge. Like a lot of times, if you read, discuss among friends and this and that, you will come to realize that a lot of these superstitions will not have basis to survive in a long-term discussion. But these are existing from so long that it has become practice and habit at this point. And those were developed in a society or civilization that at that time, in that structure, they started doing it because they wanted to suppress a certain society because it was more profitable or whatever the reason was. But now it has no basis, but it's still going on. So it has become more of a practice. I hope I answered it somewhere there.
Yeah,
and I think there's a B
insight.
part. I can say, Subhajit, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really nice talk, and of course, I did not knew many of these superstition exists in the first place, basically. So, yeah, the discussion was nice. And yeah, regarding the second question, like, does these biological superstitions, like you presented more from an Indian perspective, but does they exist all over the world, or they just have some specific geographic distributions? And if the first world countries have already been able to like overcome these, like how were they able to overcome it? Just by propagating education?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have 2 points here. It's unfortunate that all of these superstitions, I would rather say discriminations that are happening in the society based on geographical distribution, that also can actually decide your skin color based on where you are coming from, which region you are coming from, because that will decide on how much UV light and how much melanin your body can produce. And depending on where we are coming from, our skin colors are different, let's say, to start with. Not only in Indian society, unfortunately, many other societies, very developed societies, still have that kind of mindset and discrimination for people from different color, and we see it all the time in the news. So it's very unfortunate, but the answer is, this is not very specific to India. I would say when I was talking about the intra-caste marriage, the caste system is very prevalent in Indian society. And the marriage happening in intra-caste is something very much seen in Indian society. And honestly, if you see that 2025 paper, they have done some studies, and they have another paper in 2017. They have some studies where they are actually comparing these Indian population with respect to some European and US populations. And they are actually talking about how these diseases, because of endogamy and intra-caste marriages, are becoming more prevalent in India, whereas in other society we don't see this homogeneity. There is more heterogeneity and variation in the genetic population. So yeah, that part is becoming quite more specific to India, unfortunately, and it's coming more and more research, especially for diabetes. It has been predicted that in coming 20 years or so, the diabetes will like have a lot of percentage in India, unfortunately, and it will have genetic basis because of these. And then I think the second part is that if not, how are they able to overcome these superstitions? So I think it based on different societies. I think, for example, in the US, the societies are very heterogeneous. When I say the heterogeneous here, the word means like the people are coming from different parts of the world. So having that kind of one community or superstition based on one community is a little difficult to propagate, because even when you're sitting in a friend's setting, let's say some people are from Europe, some from here, but that's the setting in the US because of how the immigration here is. People are coming from all the parts of the world. I would mention, for example, other point in European society that I felt when I was there is, for many, many reasons, European society I felt has a lot of angle of giving an opportunity and having the opportunity to speak very openly about topics. So a lot of times I would not say that it might really help to overcome the superstition, but it will help to question the superstitions, definitely discussing those things. So having the opportunity to openly keep your thoughts and ideas in front of a group of people and not getting trashed or judged or questioned very heavily, but in a supportive manner, having a healthy discussion is important. In my personal experience, I would say I was able to grow a lot because I got the opportunity, especially as a woman, by traveling in different societies, to actually explore, put my ideas or my knowledge in front of other people, listen to other cultures and other ideas, and then talk about those things, talk about those superstitions, and then actually realize or come to a conclusion. So I will say the opportunity to be able to have a healthy discussions and talk freely, a lot of times in some Indian societies or families is not possible to happen, unfortunately. So that one probably can help. And of course, education is there, but as I said, education in a proper way, education not in the sense of getting degree, but education in the sense of giving proper knowledge in terms of research, what is going and not going, can also help.
Thank you. It answers very nicely. Thanks.
We have two more questions. One from Anit Mondal and another from Sarat. One from Anit Mondal, he says, "What if a person in front of me has very rigid belief who denies whatever I say? How can I change that person?" Kindly give the answer in a few sentences so that our time is a bit running out. So,
Okay. Yeah, I would say, Anit, that's a very difficult question, and I don't have a good answer, unfortunately. I go into that situations very often too. I would just say that, in my opinion, being persistent about things usually helps. For example, if this is a person that you're meeting multiple times and has a very rigid belief, listen to them, give them space to talk. You talk, but keep persistent in what you are saying every time you say it. And I think if you persistently keep talking about your ideas, your things, and persistently giving logical explanation to it, there might be a chance that the person will start thinking one day, okay, that person is saying this a lot of time again. There has to be something there. So this is what I think.
and the next question, and probably the last question from the chat box, is low or high IQ, that is the intelligent quotient, is a genetic trait or not?
Yeah, I don't think I have. So I think a lot of research is going on in there. There is, I think, some ideas in the field. Again, I think I also need to read more on this. So I will give answer about what I know. I think it's a lot about how our brain is developed more than genetic basis to it. There are certain environmental factors and also certain things that are inherited from the parents in certain ways that can define, or based on nutrition or how healthy conditions you are born and things like that. A lot of factors including in which can define on certain regions of the brain how they develop. And more of the IQ is coming, I think, from that anatomical basis and how the functioning of neurons is happening. There could be some very brief genetic trait to it, but I don't think that is inherited or generational or having an impact. Let's say that, I'm not trying to say that a family, someone is very high IQ, their child are going to be having high IQ. It is inherited from generation. I don't think this is true. So I think that is brief. I will put there. I think somebody said, interesting discussion. Psychological basis of superstition is also a topic that needs to be discussed in the future. Yeah, absolutely right. I would agree.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madhulika. If anyone has any more question, we can take up only one last question from the audience. Otherwise, we will. Yeah. Oh, from Tabriz Khan, we have a question. Are some behavioral traits of babies inherited genetically?
So I would say how we define behavior today, answer in short will be not really. Behaviors will be developed when the baby is born and what they're seeing around and how they're treated on certain things. Or if they're seeing one of their parent going to a certain behavior, they will develop those kind of behavior as their traits. But yeah, when it comes to inheritance, there are not various studies which are basically shown that a behavior you can inherit from someone. What you can inherit is what is coded in genetic. For example, when I was saying that if certain mutations are existing in certain parents, yeah, that can be inherited. There is a whole new dimension of epigenetics that I'm not going to talk more detail about today, but if you guys are interested, you should read that. Modifications on the gene can happen based on what you eat, what are the habits of, let's say, smoking, drinking, and all those things can make those changes. And some of those changes can define on how the genes or the regions of the DNA is open or closed to be read and to be made into the proteins, functional proteins that can work later on. But again, those epigenetics, most of these variations cannot be inherited. A lot of times, this is just one generation. Some of the genes now are coming that can be inherited, but again, behaviors, I would say no. Yeah, I hope I gave short answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope there are more questions, certainly, but we need to come to an end. So, first of all, we all should thank Dr. Madhulika Rai for taking this time and giving this insightful talk. And before ending the session, I would like to say that I would like to appeal everyone to join our society as a member and join our efforts to foster science education, and scientific temperament in society, and combat climate changes and environmental degradation. And this and we as a member from the Breakthrough Science Society, from the Abroad chapter, if more and more people join together, we hope that our mission will be a success. So, thank you everyone for joining and hope to see you soon somewhere else. So, thank you everyone.
Thank you.